Welcome back. Let's start with the Vatican. The Catholic Church has a new leader.
That's right. Robert Prevost, an American, now Pope Leo XIV.
It's a pretty big deal, isn't it? The first American pope, following the first Latin American pope.
Exactly. It really signals maybe a continuing shift away from purely European leadership in the church.
And his background seems quite key here, Chicago-born.
But then he spent 2 decades doing missionary work down in Peru.
So he has dual citizenship, U.S. and Peruvian. That's an interesting perspective to bring.
Definitely. It could help bridge different parts of the church. We heard the Viva Il Papa chants right away.
Yeah, and the U.S. president called it a great honor, though, interestingly, some mixed reactions from U.S. conservatives.
That's true, reflecting some of those existing viewpoints. And the name choice, Leo XIV.
Right. What's the thinking there? Does it echo Leo XIII, known for social justice?
That seems likely. And maybe even Leo I. For historical weight, names always carry significance.
Okay, let's shift focus to some international hotspots. India and Pakistan.
Yes, serious developments there. India is reporting strikes on its military bases, blaming Pakistan.
And Pakistan's response?
They're denying any involvement. But then you have counterclaims, accusations of drone attacks, air defenses being hit. It's messy.
Sounds like a dangerous escalation, the worst in quite some time.
Over 2 decades, yes. International calls for calm are coming in from the UN, world leaders.
What kicked this off?
It seems to stem from that militant attack on tourists in Indian-ministered Kashmir in Pahalgam.
Ah, okay. And India's strikes are framed as retaliation for that.
Correct. They're calling it Operation Sindoor, targeting what they describe as terrorist infrastructure.
Pakistan, meanwhile, denies backing any militants.
They do. But casualties are reportedly rising on both sides, and experts are concerned.
Concerned about what specifically? Further escalation?
Yeah, the thinking is that Pakistani retaliation is quite likely. The risk of this spreading is real. The U.S. consulate in Lahore even told staff to shelter.
A worrying situation indeed. Now, moving over to Ukraine and Russia, there was talk of a ceasefire.
There was. Russia announced a unilateral 3-day ceasefire, but Kiev immediately labeled it a farce.
Why did it not hold?
Ukraine says not at all. They reported hundreds of violations by Russia almost right away. Russia, in turn, accused Ukraine of the same.
So, fighting continued.
It seems so. Sadly, a civilian was reported killed in the Sumy region from Russian strikes during that supposed truce period.
Ukraine felt it was just for show then.
Pretty much. Time for Moscow's Victory Day parade, they suggested. Fighting apparently carried on in the east.
And we heard comments from U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance.
Yes, saying Russia's demands for a settlement are currently too much. Meanwhile, Ukraine seems to have launched massive drone attacks.
Disrupting air travel in Russia.
Significantly. Reports of around 60,000 air passengers stranded, flights disrupted at major airports.
And all this happening as Russia marks Victory Day, with China's Xi Jinping visiting Moscow.
Right, while Europe was marking Victory in Europe Day. Different commemorations, different contexts.
Let's turn to the Middle East now. The situation in Gaza remains dire. More strikes reported.
Yes, sadly. Israeli strikes hit a restaurant and a market in Gaza City, killing at least 33 Palestinians, according to reports.
And this follows other recent attacks.
It does. There were reports just before this of strikes on UN-run schools where displaced families were sheltering.
Israel has indicated it's planning to step up its campaign.
They have, saying they're preparing to intensify and expand the military campaign against Hamas.
How is that being received?
Well, the Hamas-run government media office is accusing Israel of war crimes. There's international condemnation of the plans, too.
And the humanitarian situation.
Extremely worrying. Aid agencies are warning of imminent mass starvation because of the blockade.
The Palestinian Authority Prime Minister called it a real catastrophe.
Yes, urging international intervention. It's a desperate situation.
What about the hostages still held in Gaza? Any updates?
Uncertainty remains. The Israeli Prime Minister confirmed 21 are known to be alive, but the status of 3 others is unclear.
Prompting calls for action.
Absolutely. The Hostages and Missing Families Forum is demanding action to bring the remaining hostages home.
And related tensions in East Jerusalem, UN schools closed.
Yes, Israeli forces closed 3 schools run by UNRWA, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Hundreds of students were sent home.
How did UNRWA react?
They strongly condemned it, calling it a blatant disregard of international law and denying children the right to learn.
Israel has issues with UNRWA, though.
They do. Israel accuses the agency of being infiltrated by Hamas, which UNRWA denies. The closures have drawn opposition internationally.
Okay, shifting to the U.S. now. A mistrial in Michigan.
Yes, in the murder trial of the white police officer who shot Patrick Loyola, a black motorist, the jury couldn't reach a verdict.
That case sparked huge protests, didn't it?
It did. Widespread protests over racial injustice in policing, fueled by graphic body cam footage of the incident.
What was the defense's argument?
Self-defense. They argued there was a scuffle over the officer's taser before the shooting.
And this mistrial comes after.
After the acquittal of former Memphis officers in the Tyre Nichols case, it just adds to the ongoing debate about police accountability.
On a different note, philanthropy news involving Bill Gates.
Right. He's announced plans to give away essentially almost all of his fortune, 99%, by 2045.
Wow. How is he planning to do that?
By accelerating the giving through the Gates Foundation, with the eventual aim of winding down its operations.
Inspired by Andrew Carnegie, The Gospel of Wealth.
That seems to be the inspiration, yes. The idea that the wealthy have a responsibility to use their fortunes for public good.
The foundation's already given a huge amount, hasn't it?
$100 billion already distributed, and they expect to spend another $200 billion.
And Gates has been quite vocal about foreign aid recently.
He has, criticizing cuts by the U.S., U.K., and France. He's even clashed publicly with Elon Musk over the issue.
What are the foundation's main goals now?
Focused on eliminating preventable diseases, tackling infectious diseases, and fighting poverty globally.
Let's move to Turkey. News concerning the jailed mayor of Istanbul.
Yes, Ekrem İmamoğlu. Access to his X account, his Twitter account, has been blocked within Turkey.
He's a major political rival to President Erdogan.
A key rival, yes. His CHP party is calling the block a continuation of what they term a coup attempt.
He was arrested earlier this year.
In March, on corruption charges, which he denies. The X account is still accessible outside Turkey with a VPN, apparently.
But prosecutors are looking into something specific.
They're investigating a post from the account for alleged incitement. Protests against his detention have been ongoing.
Some very sad news out of South Africa now.
Yes, truly tragic. The decomposed bodies of a missing journalist, Sibusiso Assyrian Lovu, and his partner have been found.
Have arrests been made?
5 suspects are in custody. They were apparently found with stolen belongings. Police are still working on formal DNA identification.
A shock for the media community there, I imagine?
Absolutely. Media groups express shock and disbelief. It also throws a harsh spotlight, again, on South Africa's high crime rate.
And another disturbing incident, this time in Poland, an attack at a university.
Yes, at the University of Warsaw. A woman was killed in an axe attack.
Terrible. Were others injured?
A university staff member and a security guard were seriously injured. A 22-year-old Polish law student has been arrested.
Any word on motive?
Not yet. The motive remains unclear. The university declared a day of mourning and canceled events.
Back in the U.S., allegations against a music legend.
Motown's Smokey Robinson. He's denying sexual assault allegations made by former housekeepers in a lawsuit.
What do the allegations include?
Serious claims. Rape, false imprisonment, and also labor violations.
And Robinson's response?
His lawyer called the claims vile and false, basically saying it's an attempt to extort money. It's important to note no police reports or criminal charges have been filed.
Staying in the U.S., more university protests. Colombia this time.
That's right. Dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters were arrested after they occupied part of the main library.
Were there injuries?
2 university security officers were reportedly injured. The protesters had defied a ban put in place after previous demonstrations.
Did the university call in the police?
Yes, the university president requested NYPD assistance. She also stated that many of those involved were apparently not Columbia students. There was also vandalism reported in the library.
And potential consequences for those involved.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio indicated that the visa statuses of non-citizen protesters arrested would be reviewed.
Okay, let's talk about U.S. foreign aid again, this time concerning Zambia.
Yes, the U.S. has cut $50 million in health aid to Zambia.
Why at the cut?
The U.S. cited systematic theft of donated medicines. They say repeated warnings to the Zambian government weren't adequately addressed.
Theft? How is this happening?
An investigation reportedly found donated drugs being widely sold in private pharmacies instead of reaching the intended recipients.
Has the Zambian government responded?
They've acknowledged the problem and say measures have been taken, but clearly the U.S. felt it wasn't enough.
What kind of impact will this cut have?
It's significant. It'll affect drugs provided for malaria, HIV, and TB treatment programs.
Turning to Australia now, a verdict in a high-profile murder case.
Yes, the case of Cassius Turvey, the Aboriginal schoolboy whose death caused national outrage. 2 men have been found guilty of his murder.
He was attacked by a group?
Yes, chased down and beaten by what's described as a vigilante gang. He was only 15.
Were others convicted?
A third man was found guilty of manslaughter, while a woman accused was acquitted.
What prompted the attack?
It apparently followed some damage to a car, but Cassius himself had absolutely no involvement in that. Reports say the accused even boasted about the attack later.
How is the verdict being received?
His mother described feeling numb relief. The case really reopened national conversations about racial discrimination in Australia.
In U.S. legal news concerning immigration, a block on deportations.
A federal judge has temporarily blocked a plan to deport certain migrants to Libya,
What were the judge's concerns?
primarily that it could violate due process rights and might contravene a prior court order.
And Libya itself doesn't want this.
No. The Libyan prime minister stated the country refuses to be a destination for deportations, highlighting that it's considered unsafe due to ongoing conflict. This is part of that broader Trump administration focus on immigration enforcement.
Interesting. Let's move to the art world and cultural heritage. An auction halted.
Yes, Sotheby's in Hong Kong postponed an auction of sacred jewels said to be linked to the remains of the Buddha,
Why the postponement?
following the threat of legal action from the Indian government
What's India's claim?
that the relics are inalienable cultural heritage. They argue selling them violates Indian laws and also UN conventions on cultural property.
So what happens now?
Discussions are reportedly underway between Sotheby's and the Indian government to try and resolve this.
Now, a diplomatic issue involving Denmark and the U.S.
Yes, Denmark summoned the U.S. ambassador. This relates to a report alleging U.S. spying activities focused on Greenland.
Spying on what exactly?
The report claims U.S. spy agencies were interested in Greenland's independence movement and also its significant mineral resources.
How did Denmark react?
The Danish foreign minister expressed serious concern, emphasizing that spying on allies is unacceptable.
This comes after President Trump had expressed interest in Greenland.
Repeatedly, yes. He'd suggested the U.S. might look into acquiring Greenland. Danish intelligence also noted recently an increased espionage threat against both Greenland and Denmark.
Finally today, a difficult story out of Syria. Identifying victims.
Yes, work is underway to identify human remains found in mass graves believed to contain victims of the Assad regime.
How is the identification being done?
The Syrian Identification Center is using methods like forensic odontology dental records, among others.
Are there challenges?
Definitely. DNA analysis is difficult due to limited resources and the impact of sanctions.
There are first-hand accounts emerging, too.
Yes, a former Syrian military driver reportedly recounted transporting bodies to these mass grave sites.
And for the families.
It's agonizing. They expressed deep frustration at the slow pace of identification, highlighting the ongoing trauma for countless families searching for disappeared loved ones.
So looking back at today's news, quite a range of events, from leadership changes to intense conflicts, legal battles, humanitarian crises.
Absolutely. You see these threads running through geopolitical tensions flaring up, ongoing human rights concerns, shifts in global power dynamics.
It really underscores how interconnected everything is, doesn't it? Events in one region can ripple outwards.
Definitely. And it raises that question, in this world dealing with so much conflict and change, how do the actions of individuals, but also these big international dynamics, shape the stories we see playing out every day?
A crucial question. It certainly highlights the need to stay informed and maybe dig a little deeper into these complex global issues.